Welcome to the Tech Role Models Q&A series. Today I'm joined by Kamal Purohit, who's a Global Director at Bullhorn, a recruitment software company. Hi, Kamal.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. So I guess the first thing that'd be useful for our audience is just to understand a little bit more about who you are, what your current role is, so that the journey has some context. So if you want to just take us through that, that'd be great.
Sure, no problems at all. So, hi everyone. My name's Kamal Purohit. I am Director of Global Delivery Assurance at Bullhorn. And as Kevin said, Bullhorn is a leading software provider for the recruitment industry. My journey into tech started a very, very long time ago. I'm not going to allude to my age, but I started with a view of wanting to become a pharmacist. So I did some A levels in biology, chemistry, and all the sciences, and then decided to follow my path into computer science. So I did a degree in maths and computing. And then wanted to learn a little bit about business. So I actually did a master's in manufacturing systems. I then thought, right, now, the world's my oyster. I'm going to go out there and find a job and use my computing skills. I started coding, and let me tell you this, it lasted less than 6 months. I decided coding was not for me. I was definitely a people person and not a computer person. I hated every minute of it, and I wanted to pivot. So very early on in my career, I had to learn how to pivot and pivot, having very little industry experience. So I then worked at the same organization, and instead of coding, I started writing technical specifications. So using my tech knowledge, but writing specifications that the developers could pick up. I enjoyed doing that, and then slowly moved into more of trying to bridge the gap between business and technology and writing functional specifications. So I was a business analyst. And then I felt that my passion really was in planning things, right? Really putting down what I needed to do and getting things done, and actually telling people what to do when is something that I enjoy. So I started taking on some internal projects, and then got myself the title of project management. And I was then moved into a formal project manager role. And since then, my career moved into project management. I worked as a project manager for quite a few years, all within the payments industry, and then was given the opportunity to actually manage a group of project managers within EMEA. And I enjoyed doing that and realized that, oh, people management is also actually fun because it allowed me the opportunity to grow people and guide them in terms of how best to manage projects and how best to deliver results. My career, this was at ACI, took off quite well. I ended up managing pretty much the global portfolio. So it was a global project management team, really, and that brought in its own set of challenges, right? How do you ensure you're covering 3 time zones? How are you bringing in consistency into your portfolios? How are you bringing consistency in delivery? And my focus, and what do you get focused into, right? Because you can't actually jump into 150 projects. So it was really determining and driving standards in terms of what good project management looked like. And then as for one of the questions that was asked earlier, I had to come out of my comfort zone, right? In terms of what do I do to come out of the payments industry? So I looked at myself, looked at what I was doing and what I enjoyed doing, and realized actually my skills were very transferable. I was completely industry agnostic. So I moved into the travel industry. So I worked for TUI for a couple of years. And there I was driving a lot of their digital transformation projects. Again, managing the delivery of it, managing a team of people who are enabling that delivery into the TUI's digital journey. A couple of years later, I moved into Bullhorn, again, another brand new industry, software industry recruitment. I knew nothing about staffing. And the key principles that I've really used is how to make sure that I guide and equip myself with enough knowledge about the industry to be able to be successful, and understanding who within the organization I could turn to and who could be my go-to people to actually get information from and help as I onboarded within that organization. And delivery assurance is now what I do at Bullhorn, really looking after Bullhorn's enterprise clients and trying to drive governance and consistency there.
Yeah, there's a few things there that you mentioned, which we'll pick up on individually. So if we go back to the start of not even start of your career, before that, you're one of the rare people I speak to that actually decided that they were going to do a computing based degree, at least maths and computing. So was there some desire from you right from day one to get into a tech role?
Yes, there was. I think at that time tech was really taking off. So, it was something that was exciting. It was new. It was something that was in the news. Everybody was talking about it and it made sense. And what I've done is by having that tech knowledge, it's actually enabled me to bridge that gap between business and technology because I'm able to take business requirements, business needs, and translate them internally into technical requirements and needs, and vice versa, right? Because if you put a completely technical person in front of the business, they normally tend to lose the business counterpart because they'll talk in tech talk, right? So this was my way of being able to bridge that gap whilst using my technical knowledge.
Yeah, and it sounds like 6 months into your first job, you quite quickly realised that the thing that you thought you were going to do isn't the thing you ended up doing. So, what was it that you found different from, being outside of the tech sphere and hearing about tech to then working in tech? What to you was different?
Good question. At that point, tech was still upcoming, right? So I think if I even go far back to my first job, I was developing on a chip to put onto a ROM, a chip that went into an embedded board, which then drove a terminal, right? So the terminal, which was a point of sale terminal, right? It was how to code and code it in an optimistic way and a really good way so that it could fit into that ROM, right? And it was just very stressful. Just thinking about how code works. I couldn't sleep. All I was thinking about was debugging code and writing code and how to get it to work. I didn't enjoy that at all. And I lost the interaction with people because you were more machine based. You were focused on your laptop or PC at that point, really working in terms of developing. And I really felt very early on that how could I use the knowledge I had but bring in the passion I had about dealing with people and working in a more customer and people facing role.
Yeah, you mentioned passion there, and I know you mentioned that a couple of times already, and I think we spoke historically about, finding your passion. So how when you've got this job in front of you and you kind of, you've got a job spec, you know what you're supposed to be doing, how did you manage to stretch that job to be able to work out what your passion was and then move into a different type of role?
So when I was working as a business analyst, I always used to look down and say, hey, this is how long it's going to take. This is what I need to do. And it was really starting to plan. And I then started working very closely with the project managers who were managing me to help them plan. And that's where I discovered my passion for planning and understanding where am I starting, where am I ending, and what is it that I need to get to do in the middle to get to the end point, right? Understanding your dependencies, understanding, what your critical path was, all the good things about project management. And it was when I started doing that and understanding and using some of the tools that existed that I realized that project management was really where my passion was. And once you just know. And then it's a question of how do you find yourself the opportunities to go in and get them. So, for example, when I look at project management today and look at jobs for project management, one of the few things you see in there is you must be qualified. So, you have to have PMP certification or print certification. I'm the first one to admit, I've been 30 years plus in my career and I don't have any formal qualifications in project management. It's all been through opportunity and learning on the job. And I actually feel, as someone who's been through it myself and someone who's actually built teams where I have brought in people who don't have that knowledge base or that experience set, but bringing them on board with a view of how can we train you on the job whilst learning. I think once you have a little bit of practical experience in an area and then you go off and do a theoretical course, I think you'll get more from it. When you just do a course, it's like being a student. You don't know how you're going to apply it. When you've got real life examples in your head and you're doing a PMP course or a Prince course, wow, the amount of people who've turned around to me and said, that was actually very, very useful because I could relate it back to something I'd done before. So real life examples. And when people actually, so when I'm recruiting myself, I've actually done it in such a way that I've also had a good mix of people in my team where I've gone in and brought in people that I could mentor, coach, and guide into becoming good project managers. And they've made it really, really far in their careers. And we kind of keep in touch. And, you know, it's been given that single opportunity initially to be able to find your passion and then grow within that area.
Yeah, you talk about they're hiring people that don't have the prerequisite qualifications, you know, the bit of paper to say I can do the job. What do you think, if we're talking about project management specifically, are the kind of skills and attributes that you look for in people and that you naturally had above and beyond the training and qualification at university that allowed you to be successful?
I think the biggest one is being organized, right? And the ability to communicate, right? The project manager's Bible has to be the project plan. If you're not keeping that updated, and if you're not looking at that pretty much every day, if not every other day, then you're not doing your job right? Because that is what is guiding you, and that is what is guiding the team. And then the ability to talk with facts. It's a fact-based discussion that you're having with your stakeholders in terms of, are we on track? Are we slipping? What do we need to do to make up the time? And I think with those two capabilities, right, being able to be organized and the ability to communicate very clearly with facts are the two biggest attributes when it comes to project management.
Yeah, no, good. And I guess project management is one of those roles where leadership tends to come with the job, doesn't it? No matter what level you're at, you've always got responsibility for people and making sure they're on track. So what do you think are the core skills that somebody needs from that perspective to be able to, you know, be a successful project manager, but then also look at moving into a more senior leadership role within that space?
100%. So you've got to look at it in terms of, so when I was managing projects, you know, as I was a project manager at ACI, and I was given the opportunity to manage a team of, it was only 3 people there. I was 3 project managers. The first thing is understanding, you know, how not to jump in when you see an issue, right? Because you're a project manager, someone else is a project manager, and moving from a doer and an individual contributor to a manager takes a different mindset. That mindset is more of when to actually understand and realize what type of coaching you need to do. So I always have an approach of taking an approach of 3 potential solutions, right? So I look at the issue, and I look at the issue and the criticality of the issue and the way to solve it. So if an issue is very, very critical, then it's actually, I don't have the time to coach someone. I need to jump in, fix it, and then bring someone on board in terms of, here's the scenario, here's what I did, here's how we should address it in the future. So that's one option. Option number 2 is saying to the person, work with me, right? So we're going to go in together. I'm holding your hand. We're going to go in together. We're going to address this problem in this way. I'm going to do this part of the project. You're going to do this part of the project, and we're going to move together, and we're going to touch base at every point in time to make sure we're getting the outputs that we want at each stage. The third part, when the issue itself isn't very critical, then you've got a little bit of time to coach people properly, because you can actually take a step back and say, hey, here's the problem. How do you think you would be able to resolve it? Work with them in terms of listening, understanding how they would resolve it, and also inputting ways in which you would also, you know, the way in which I would address it, and finding what works best. And then agreeing the next steps in terms of that project manager taking the step forward to go and solve the problem, but ensuring you've got the right checks and balances to ensure that we're still steering the ship in the right direction. So we're not going off course again, that we are achieving the results we wanted. And I think just having those 3 kind of guiding principles in terms of how to coach has helped me move from individual project management to managing a team. I went to managing 70 project managers, and everyone's at different stages in their careers, in different stages in their experience set, and also different projects. Projects have different kind of issues. Customers are also very different. You've also got, people, when you're working in a global team, you've got individual, when you're looking at different countries, you've got the experiences of how people behave and how customers expect to react in a specific area. Some are they want detail, they want data. Some are quite okay, they're very laid back, and others are taskmasters, right? And it's learning how to work with each type of customer and how best to understand that customer and finding the best ways of working.
Yeah. And did you always see yourself going into such a senior role that you're in now? Was that always the aspiration?
It was, when I was a little girl, I only wanted to be a teacher, right? And then I wanted to be a pharmacist. I was very confused. Absolutely. Everyone's, intention is to grow and move up in the career. What I've done actually, so I was a VP at ACI. When I left ACI, I was a VP. When I took on a role at TUI, I moved down to director level. And
Wow.
for me, a title isn't what was causing it, what was my driver. For me, the driver was more about I needed to come down a level because I needed to be a little bit more hands-on because I needed to learn about that industry. So I didn't have everything to give to take on that VP role. And I actually came, and I'm doing the same at Bullhorn. I'm a director at Bullhorn. The reason being, I'm new to the industry. I want to learn about the industry. But when I know enough about the industry, I can then move back to that VP level role to be able to play a more strategic role. It's not that I'm not playing one now, but when you're at a VP level, you're doing less hands-on, but you have enough tools in your toolkit about the industry to be able to play in that field. So my advice to anyone listening would be, when you're looking to move out of your comfort zone, whereby you either don't have the skill set that's necessary to take on that new role, or you're in a brand new industry for that new role, there's sometimes you do need to take a step back to allow yourself to rebuild your toolkit to be able to then go out there full force. And that's absolutely worked for me.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. It answers one of the other questions that we often get, which is some of our members want to understand whether they would enjoy the more senior role because with the seniority, the responsibilities change and you move away from sometimes doing the thing you love to being the manager of the people that are doing the thing you love.
You know what, Kevin, that is such a great point, right? I'm a doer, right? And I'm a problem solver. The messier the problem, the happier I am. I sit there literally rubbing my hands going, yes, it's a messy problem. I can go fix it. However, when you are in a management role, you have to put yourself in a different mindset in terms of ensuring you're not the one going in there to solve the problem. You're helping direct a team to help solve the problem. And that isn't for everyone. There are people, and so people need to look at it in terms of, do I want to be there doing the things and driving myself and being accountable for myself? Or do I want to be accountable yet not have any control because you've got a team who are doing things and you have to have the right checks and balances to be able to say, are we still on track? Without sounding like you wanting to get involved in doing it for them, but still being accountable, and it's your neck on the line. And it's a different mindset when you're in that position. So for people wanting to move from an individual contributor role to a management role, I would definitely say do look deep and think hard. If you want to stay as a doer, there's nothing wrong with staying as a doer. You can be an expert in your area. But if you want to go into management, then you do need to learn how to step back and let others do stuff for you, because otherwise you'll never scale up.
Yeah. The other question we get quite often is how to leverage other people in your network to progress. So for those people that do want to follow your kind of path and move into that leadership role, what advice would you give them, and what examples from your own story do you have of using mentors, sponsors, and other people in the organization to help you?
Great question. So, as you know, I'm very, very passionate again about the mentorship program, right? So I've joined hands with you guys, and I think you guys run an amazing program. I'm mentoring 3 ladies through your program, and the feedback I get and I mean, if you ever speak to any of my friends, when I finished a mentoring call, I'm full of really positive vibes because I feel like I've achieved something. And with that mentoring mindset, I've actually been able to work with our HR department at Bullhorn, and we've just rolled out a mentoring program within Bullhorn. Having a mentor internally within an organization and externally is very, very important. I myself have a mentor externally who I do turn to in terms of, hey, this has come up. How would you address it? Or I want to go into this role. I've never really done it. What advice would you give me? So I'll give you an example about using your network. When I wanted to take the jump out of my comfort zone and when I left ACI, it was the first instinct was, let me find another role within payments. And it was connecting up with an old customer of mine who was still part of my network, who was working at TUI, who basically convinced me that you've got all the right skill set. The industry knowledge is secondary. You've got to take that leap of faith, and having someone support you and encourage you in taking that leap is very, very important. And if I hadn't done it, I would never have understood that I could actually apply my skills to other industries, and I would be stuck in payments, which I love. I thought it was a great industry and a lot going for it. But this has given me the opportunity to keep learning, but learning in different industries. So again, my advice there would be wherever you can grab information or where you can get sponsors, mentors, having a very healthy network. LinkedIn is a great tool to build your network because what happens is when you see jobs advertised, for example, you'll always see who your connections are there. And it's nothing like a personal voice that goes in to say, I recommend this person for a role. Because if you look at it nowadays, you've got loads of people applying for jobs. CVs, I know a little bit about the Bullhorn software, CVs are being parsed and, shortlisted based on keywords. If your CV doesn't have that keyword, you're not even going to get picked. So won't it be great if you had somebody who you knew in that organization who could put in a good word for you? Recommendations, again, on LinkedIn are another thing that I, as a recruiter, definitely look at because it's an insight into how people see this individual. So I think joining the mentor program is good. It's healthy. It doesn't matter where you are in your career. Having a mentor cannot hurt.
No, thank you. It's good. It's good to know. And thanks again for the work you're doing with the three people that you're supporting for us. So we've already addressed some of the questions we had in the Q&A before. I'm going to give anyone in the live audience a chance to ask any questions. You can either put that in the chat box or take themselves off mute and actually speak to us. While they do that and while I think about that, Kamal, are there any other top tips or things that you think we haven't covered today that you I guess the question is almost, if you had a chance to go back and talk to yourself as you were entering the tech world, is there anything you'd do differently?
I don't think I would. I think I did approach it the right way. I think I would actually, the only thing I'd do differently is I'd probably push myself out of my comfort zone a lot earlier. I didn't have the faith in me. So, Patricia's question was, coming out of the comfort zone, how do you do it, right? There's two ways I look at it. Sometimes you're pushed, right? So when I left ACI, it was, I was made redundant. So I left the payments industry, not out of choice, right? And I then, at that point, I was like, oh my God, I don't know how to deal with this. What do I do? But the second time is when you actually do it of your own accord and you decide to move out and you're mentally ready to move out of your comfort zone. Always make sure that you've got, I'd say, at least 60% of your tools in your toolbox so that you don't go into a blank canvas. You're going in with something to offer, and then you're leaving room there for something to learn.
Yeah, no, great, thank you. No, thanks again for your time, Kamal. It's been really great to hear about your story. I think there's some fantastic tips there, not just for people trying to develop their career, but actually for hiring managers. For me, the takeaway is that whole point about hiring people based on skills and attributes, not just qualifications.
Exactly.
I think it's a real challenge for employers to be able to run those processes and work out people who are a good fit without the piece of paper. I definitely think it's something, especially when we look at diversity, something that we should all endeavour to do more is look beyond, because as we all know, one of the barriers to entry for women in tech is that socially we don't encourage them from a young age to get that tech qualification. But all the people I know that females that work in tech are absolutely fantastic, regardless of the background they've come from. So again, thanks for your time, Kamal.
Because they're good at chatting.
And yeah, for anyone that's catching this, the session is recorded, and you can get in touch with me if you want to have any conversations with Kamal following the session. Feel free to reach out, pass on any questions, and we can pass them on to her. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.